4 betting strategy research methods that work and 1 that doesn't. So, you are using big data to research your own betting system. You have your database of football statistics and historical bookmaker odds. If you don't have a football database yet, you can use do-it-yourself option A, using Excel and downloading Betfair historical data from their website, but that needs days of your time. You need to do manual data downloading. You'll need advanced Excel skills. The costs vary. They have 8 years of data with over 100 leagues. I'm not a big fan of the Betfair historical data because they only have 8 years of data and you have to choose each month from each year and each sport you want to download it from. So it takes ages to download all these things. And each file you download has not just one price, but the price per minute. So there's masses of data to handle with. You can get some for free, but other kinds of data from Betfair cost more if you want the price changes from each second or each tick data. So I'm not a big fan of option A, but some people do use that. And it is possible to get that data for free, but it will take days of your time. Others do it yourself option B using Excel and footballdata.co.uk, and that'll only need hours of your time. You still need to do manual data downloading. You'll need moderate Excel skills. It's free to download the data. They have 10 years of data for 38 leagues. But one thing that really takes time with football data is that when you do try to download the results, you have to download them separately for each season, for each league. And then you're going to have to put those files together into one Excel file. And then you're going to have to use your moderate Excel skills to manipulate that data to find out what historical betting strategies worked and what didn't. Or you can use what I use, which is a ready-to-use online database of football statistics and historical bookmaker odds that's already there and ready to use, which is betaminic.com. That only needs minutes of your time. The first time I used it, I was amazed at how easy it was, and it showed me very quickly whether one of my ideas would have made profit historically or not. And if you know if your betting system would make profit over the last 10 years or not, then you have a fair idea of if it might make profit in the future. For example, if it made a loss over the last 10 years, then it's probably not going to make a profit in the future. But if it did make a profit in the last 10 years, then there's a certain chance it'll make profit in the future. It's not guaranteed, but it gives you a good starting point. With Betaminic, there's no downloading involved. All the data's online. There's no Excel skills needed because it's an online tool. It's already there for you to manipulate the data and put your ideas in. And they have over 10 years of data from 111 leagues, so they really cover a lot of leagues there, more than football data does. Probably not as many as Betfair because they really do have a lot of, I think Betfair covers the most leagues maybe. So if you don't have a football database yet, don't waste your time, just go straight to Betaminic and have a look there. By the way, if you like big data betting, then please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to get more videos like this. Well, in previous videos, I've talked about 4 steps to find value betting strategies. In this video, I want to talk about step 3, the league filters. Just before I do that, I want to go over the 4 steps. And the first one is I recommend going through match filters. I recommend going through objective match filters. And what I mean by that is filters that aren't debatable, like how many wins there were, how many goals there were, conceded goals, winning streaks, losing streaks, and so on. Those are all objective facts. So first I recommend playing with objective filters to find strategies that eat away at the bookmaker margin. Betaminic odds come from Pinnacle, which is often compared to an Asian bookmaker, a volume bookmaker, so they have quite low margins. So usually if you bet randomly on sports over the long term, you'll make a -4% loss, a -4% yield on those bets. So when you are adding objective match filters, then you're aiming to reduce that loss from -4% down to -3, -2, -1 to eat away at that. The next step is to go to subjective match filters. Subjective filters are those that humans have added on afterwards, which are the odds basically. So doing filtering by odds. So then maybe we found a trend from using objective filters that's reduced the bookmaker margin, and then we can reduce that further by using odds filters, like only betting on home favorites when their odds are under 1.5, or only betting on underdogs when the over 2.5 goals odds are above evens, or so on. adding in subjective filters. So after we've added in our subjective filters and we've eaten away a little bit more at the bookmaker margin, the next thing is to add in the league filters. And that's what this video is mainly about. What are the different methods of filtering leagues that you can use? So as I said, I'm going to tell you 4 league filtering methods that work and 1 that doesn't. Can you guess which one doesn't work? Well, the 5 I'm going to talk about are using all the leagues, or positive inclusion by high yield, positive inclusion by realistic yield, positive inclusion by yield and data size, and negative exclusion by yield and data size. What do those mean? Well, using all leagues is obvious. You don't filter any leagues and you use the filters you have as they are. By applying your betting method to all leagues, that reduces the chances of data mining. Because once we start picking just the leagues that have positive results, there's a chance that we're just picking the winners. A very simplistic way to explain this is, for example, if I took all the teams in Europe and sorted them by alphabetical order and discovered that you can make a profit betting on teams that begin with the letter A, that is just random chance. That's not based on anything real there, and that's data mining. We've just picked out historical data where we have winners. And that's data mining. We have to be very careful for that. And when we use all leagues, we're not filtering out leagues just because they're winning. We're not filtering in leagues just because they're winning. So it reduces the chance of that. So that's one good point about that. Also, if something is working, it's making profit across all leagues, it's found a global football trend. And that means it might work for other leagues that are not actually included in the database you have. Betaminic has 111 leagues, which is probably all the leagues we'll need, but maybe you're betting on Betfair and there's some other random minor leagues that come up. And if you're using a strategy that you found with the Betaminic database and it works across 111 leagues, then, well, it may work on that extra league, I know, Vietnamese second division or whatever. Some of the negative things about using an all leagues method is that it's not really efficient, because we'll be betting on some leagues where the trend is not as pronounced. And therefore the yields are going to be lower, and because we're betting on a higher volume of games, some of which the trend is not as pronounced, the drawdown's going to be higher, and there's going to be more variance. There's going to be bigger losing streaks, but also higher winning streaks. So there's a lot of advantages to using the all leagues thing, and I think reducing the chances of data mining is a big one, because we're introducing the chances of human error there by adding our opinions and taking out leagues there. Personally, I'm a very big fan of using strategies that work across all leagues, but it can lead to more variance, and some people who can't make it through those losing runs, they don't like those losing runs, then maybe it's not for them. But until I'm absolutely sure about the best way to filter leagues, then I feel that using all leagues is quite a good way to create a betting system. A second method, and this is actually the one I don't recommend, is positive inclusion by high yield. What I mean by this is you have your database, and let's imagine which leagues are we going to use, and we start with no leagues on that list of which leagues we're going to use, and then we only add in leagues with yields of 20% or more. And I don't recommend this because there's a very high chance that that's going to be a result of data mining. We're just picking the winners, and there's a higher chance of catching negative variance there. What I mean by negative variance, I just mean a losing run. Like if you have all the results and then there's a couple of leagues where they're making 20, 30, 40% profit with the betting system you're using, there's a high chance that they were just on a lucky winning run. With natural positive variance, and you're going to follow it then. Oh, that looks good. It looks like it's going to win. And then you're just going to catch the downward trend. You're going to catch the downward variance, the negative variance, almost like catching a roller coaster when it's got to the top, and you're just going to ride it down, and we don't want that. And another problem with this is it ignores the data size of leagues. So you could have 111 leagues, and then the top 10 leagues have yields of 40, 50, 60%. That looks great. There's only 4 or 5 bets of data for each of those leagues, and 4 or 5 bets is nothing. That doesn't prove anything whether this league should be included or not. So just including by high yield, I think, in my opinion, it's not a good way to do things. And I've done it in the past. I've created 4 years ago, I created strategies like that, and almost all of them quickly went negative very quickly. So I don't recommend that method of filtering leagues at all. A third method is positive inclusion by realistic yield. And what I mean by that is, again, starting with no leagues on our list and then adding in only leagues that have yields of 4% or more, and we cut out all the other leagues. This is not fantastic, but I have to include it because basically it's found my best strategy. In 2017, it found my best and my longest running strategy, the Colossus 06 scoring away over strategy. And that's an over 2.5 goal strategy. And I found it simply by, I applied my filters, my objective, my subjective filters, and then I just cut out all the leagues that didn't have yields of 4% or higher, and it worked. But I did that with 21 other strategies, and about half of them were making profit for a while, and then only a few of them kept going, making consistent long-term profits. And this one, the Colossus 6, by far has beaten lots of other strategies that have come, I've researched, and other people have researched along the way. So I often wonder, why did this work? And maybe it was just luck to find the trend that did work. But from a statistics point of view, one problem with this is that it ignores the data size of leagues. So I included leagues in there that only had a few bets, and that doesn't prove that they work or not. You know, if they just had 10 or 20 bets, that's no real proof that this betting strategies trend is working in those leagues. So I can't say this is a bad way to do things, because it has worked and it has found my best system. And you can follow that on betaminic.com. It's the top of their rankings on their public strategies, their publicly shared strategies. And this was in my book, Winning Betting Strategies. And it's just kept going, winning and winning. But it's not perfect. It does have sometimes long flat runs and losing runs, but it's still made, I think it's made 5% yield over the last 4 years. I think that's very good for a betting system. So I've kept looking for ways to improve on this league filtering method. I want to know what is the best way to do that. So an improvement I have on that is positive inclusion by realistic yield and data size. And what I mean with that is to start with no leagues on a list and then only include leagues that have yields of 5% or more, and leagues that have 100 bets worth of data in that league's data set. And what that means is that we're only using leagues that have data that proves they beat the market on a consistent basis, that prove that this betting strategy works for those leagues. Because after 100 bets, it's still in profit. And as time goes on, you can refresh your data, because you'll have new bets in, new data in, and then see if some leagues will be added in or removed. So I think this is quite a good one. One still possible negative point for this is there is a small chance of catching negative variance swing, because even 100 bets isn't that long. I mean, when I create betting strategies with the BFBot manager, when I'm just running things like that, I'm not really convinced until a strategy has had over 500 or 1,000 bets, because with Betfair you can have like hundreds of bets a day, and like you get to 1,000 within a couple of weeks. If you're running a betting strategy that bets on every game, you can get to that 1,000 bet mark quite quickly. So even 100 bets isn't a lot, but I think it's a minimum level that I've arbitrarily put in there. But I think having no data minimum is even worse, is even more risky. So this positive inclusion method, this is a method I've been using recently to create new strategies and to go back to my old strategies and refresh them, rebuild them again with this positive inclusion method. And I'm trying to contrast it with a negative exclusion method. And the negative exclusion by yield and data size, what I mean by that is we start with all the leagues. So the database they have is 111 leagues. So start with all 111 leagues and only remove leagues that have yields of less than 5% and 100 bets worth of data in that league data set. And that means I'm going to still have some leagues that are making a loss, but there's only 30, 40, 50 bets, or even 99 bets worth in that data set, but they're making a loss. My reasoning is that they haven't got enough bets to prove that they don't work yet. So if I exclude them, I might be missing out on profit. And also if I exclude them, I could be data mining, because then I'm only picking the winners. So in this way, I'm only kicking out the losers, the obvious losers. And I think that's a slightly less risky way of excluding leagues. So I think, yeah, it lowers the chance of data mining, and it also lowers the chance of catching a negative variance swing. As I said before, when you have a couple of leagues with very high yields, there's a chance that's just a result of a lucky positive run. And if I follow just them, I might just catch their negative run. Very simple way to look at that is like, we know the average draw rate is 25% across all leagues, is 25%. And some strategies, some filters will give you 33%. That's fine. But if you have a league that's making like 70% yield, but its draw rate is is 55%, you know that's just a lucky run. There's no way that league is going to continue with a 55% draw rate, and that is just positive variance, just a lucky run of draws. And if you follow it, there's going to be a lot of home wins and away wins to bring that average back closer down to 25%. Or even 33% with your filters applied. So that's what I mean by not catching a negative variance swing. But a minus point for this method is that there will be a higher drawdown than the positive inclusion method, and there will be lower yields than the positive inclusion. Lower yields, obviously, because we're including leagues that are making a loss at the moment, and they may continue to make a loss. This strategy may not work for those leagues. And there'll be a higher drawdown because we have more of those leagues that this betting trend may not work for. So on the one hand, we're lowering our chance of data mining, but on the other hand, there's going to be lower yields and higher drawdown. For me personally, I'm now creating all my strategies with both negative exclusion by yield and data size, and also positive inclusion by realistic yield and data size. And I run them side by side, and I watch them, and I want to see how they do. And as I said, my most successful strategy that I've ever created is the Colossus 6 scoring away overs. And so I've refreshed that. I've made that again using these different strategy methods to see what works. So let's look at 4 versions I've created based on the core settings of that strategy, the core filters of that strategy. So we have the original Colossus 6 scoring away overs, which was created just by simple inclusion of leagues that have yields of 4% or more. And that at that time, there were only 57 leagues in the Betaminic database. It's been expanded since then, but at that time, there were only 57. And only 16 of those leagues were included in that strategy. Only 16 of those 57 leagues had a yield, an ROI, of 4% or more. So just those were included. And that's done really well over the last 4 years. That's worked. And then last year in August, I updated that using a negative exclusion method. But in that negative exclusion method, I just excluded leagues that had yields of less than 0.5%. That's not less than 5%, less than 0.5%. So basically, I excluded loss-making leagues with more than 100 bets in their data set, and that ended up including 64 of the 111 leagues available in the database. So I thought this would work better because I'm avoiding data mining, and I can apply this winning formula that worked with the Colossus 06, apply it to all of these new leagues, these 111 leagues. And that new version has done all right, but just recently it's had a bit of a bad run, and I want to know why. And then just recently, in November, I created another 2 versions of the Colossus 06 to start at exactly the same time. One of them was the positive inclusion method I talked about, including leagues with 5% or more yield and 100 bets in each of those leagues. And that led to only 10 of the 111 leagues being used. And I also made a negative exclusion version, which excluded leagues that had a yield of under 5% and 100 bets or more in their data set. And that led to including only 48 of the 111 leagues. And let's try and compare these. My personal gut feeling was that the negative exclusion one would be the winner, because I just thought 10 leagues is just too few. There's a chance I'm data mining there. But let's have a look at what the results were. So first of all, this is the original strategy, the Colossus 06 scoring away overs that I created 4 years ago, with the very simple, just cut out the leagues that have yields under 4%. And here, this top chart, that's the total results from all 10 years. So from running this strategy for 10 years, applying it to all 10 years of data in the database, it has made a profit of 308 points with a yield of 8%. And then the chart underneath, that's the since created, the since shared data. So this was created 4 years ago. So here there's 4 years of data. So we can see how it actually performed in real life with new bets. And there it's made 71 points profit with a 5% yield. And I think a 5% yield is very good for a betting strategy, for a long-term betting strategy. Then here's my updated version, the Colossus version 7, I called it. That used 64 of the 111 leagues. And this was excluding leagues that were making a loss if they had 100 or more bets in their leagues. So still had loss-making leagues that had between 1 and 99 bets in them. And you can see from this one already that all results period over the last 10 years has only a yield of 4.8%. So the original Colossus had an 8% yield, but this negative exclusion version, the yield is much lower. It's 4.8% because we're including a lot more loss-making leagues in there. This was started on August the 26th last year, and this bottom chart we can see here, it's actually evens after 400 bets. It's only made 0.23 points profit. But including the bookmaker margin, it should, if I just bet randomly on every match to be over 2.5 goals, I would have made a minus 4% loss. So in that sense, it's beaten the market by 4%. That's quite good, but it's no good for me because I want to make profit. It could just be a bad run. It probably is. If we look at the all-time results from the past 10 years, the win rate has been 55%, but in the last 400 bets, the win rate has been 52%. So obviously, if there's less matches finishing over 2.5 goals, then we're not going to make as much. One other thing I want to point out here is the drawdown. The all-period results, the 10 years worth of data. This goes back to 2012, so that's nearly 11 years now. The maximum drawdown, the worst losing run, was minus 49 points. The original Colossus only had a maximum drawdown of minus 23.68 points. So its worst run in that entire 10-11 year run, minus 23 points. That's really good. But the negative exclusion version, bigger drawdown. So that's one negative point of it. So then last November, I made two versions, a positive inclusion version and a negative exclusion version. The positive inclusion version has a higher yield, 10% for its 11 years of data, and a lower drawdown, minus 23 points. That's very good. And it's only been running 3 months, so we only have 3 months of results, and that's 25 bets. And in that time, while it's had 1 winning month and 2 losing months, it's made 6.5 points profit, and that's a 26% yield. That's fantastic. But you can see the win rate is 64%, so there's also a chance it's just positive variance. Let's compare that to the negative exclusion version. The negative exclusion version over 10-11 years has a yield of 6.8%, but quite a similar drawdown, just minus 24. The positive inclusion version was minus 23.86 for its maximum drawdown, and this negative exclusion version only minus 24.18. The big difference between this one and the version 7 I had is this is excluding leagues with yields of under 5%. Whereas my previous one, my V7 version, was yields of 0.5% or less. So this one's a bit stricter there. And over the past 3 months, it's win-win-win, 3 months of profit. And I think that's really interesting, and a little bit I'm happy about that. You know, I like the negative exclusion beating the positive inclusion because it makes more sense logically to me. As I said, less chance of data mining, less chance of picking the winning leagues, less chance of human error. So in the last 3 months, it's made 11 points profit with a 16% yield. The win rate is 59%, and that's after 74 bets. So we have a lot more data here. So these numbers become a bit more meaningful. So looking at this data, maybe negative exclusion is the right way. But it's not that simple. So 3 months is a very short period of time, so we only have a few bets to judge the positive yield version, but it appears from this that the negative exclusion version is better. But in the past 3 months, the Colossus V7 and the positive inclusion version have both made profit, but the original Colossus 6 has actually made minus 0.37 points loss in the same period. So these updated versions apply to all the leagues, are all doing better than the original version. But 3 months is a very short period of time to look at. But the reason why I'm just looking at these 3 months is that anything before this time would give an advantage to the 2 newest versions I created, especially the positive inclusion one, because it's just including the winning leagues, isn't it? But if we did expand this table back to January 2022, so we look at the past 13 months, then the positive inclusion strategy comes up as best, making 24 points in the last year with an 11% yield, an estimated 11% yield. And that's with only 216 estimated bets. I don't have the exact numbers. It's possible to get the exact numbers, but I'd have to do a bit of downloading then. You can download the data files from Betaminic, but As I said, I just want to use minutes of my time for this. I don't want to use hours of my time for this. So I can see the indication here that the positive inclusion one is working well too. And the negative inclusion one did make a profit, but its yield was much lower at 2.81%. So then I'm in two minds there, should I go for positive inclusion, negative inclusion? But both of those versions are better than the original or the V7 version I made. So my conclusion is one of those two versions, the negative exclusion or the positive inclusion versions, are the ways you should research your betting methods. And until it is obvious which one is the better one, I think it's good to create your betting strategies and filter leagues using both methods and see how they go. But just based on this data, then I would want to use the positive inclusion version. And in fact, that's what I'm going to do from this month. So I'm going to switch from the V7 version I was using to this positive inclusion version because it has a lower maximum drawdown, it has better yields, it's made the most profit in the last 13 months, it's used the least picks, so it seems the most efficient way. And big data betting is all about looking at the historical data and moving forward with that. It doesn't guarantee it's going to do the same thing, it's going to make a profit, but I think it's much smarter betting than just betting based on my opinion. So in this video, I talked about 5 league filtering methods using all leagues, positive inclusion by high yield, realistic yield, positive inclusion by yield and data size, and negative exclusion by yield and data size. Right now, I recommend number 4 and number 5. To me, it is not absolutely obvious yet which one of those is correct, but I think both of them offer very good plus points. I think the negative exclusion version reduces the chance of data mining, but the positive inclusion version seems more efficient. So we will see which is the winner over time. But I think number 4 and number 5 are better than the other versions. But I also think there's still a role for using all leagues as well. But if you do have a strategy that works with method 4 or method 5, I think that's a pretty good strategy you've got there. And if you don't have a database, then try these methods with the Betaminic database. It'll take minutes, just sign up. It's free to use their database to research things on their database. And it's quite fun to try your ideas in there and say, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, this works. One of my recommended ways to get used to using the Betaminic database is to go in there with a target. For example, what would happen if I backed all home favorites? So then you make a strategy with where you back the home team when the odds are under 2 for the home win team. And you will see, does that make a profit or not? And if it does, how much? And it's quite interesting to see that data come up in moments, and that's the eureka moment for me. And then you think, well, I can see that doesn't work. Oh, there's the answer. And then try something else and try some other strategies and look at what does work on the public strategies page, get their ideas and then develop them yourself, or just follow what they're doing. So if you're interested in big data and you want to make it easy on yourself, then go have a look at the Big Data Betting Research Database and that online analysis tool, which is betaminic.com. And I've used them to make my own betting system and to automate that. So I don't have to touch it. It just does it all automatically itself now. And you can see how I do that I explain that on my website, bettingsystemsguide.com. So please go and take a look at that if you're interested in that. My system in its current form has made 36% on its bank in the last 7 months. And that uses Betaminic strategies and puts them into the BF Bot Manager automated betting software for betfair.com. And that's how that works. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing more videos like this. Thank you for watching. Now go try these methods with the Betaminic database.